Try something a little bit stupid. I have a super clamp. I'm gonna see if I can rig this to my motorcycle with minimal safety precautions. So yeah, let's just try to get this going. So this review of the DJI RS2 with the Komodo, gonna be kind of a love-hate situation. I hate it because at first it was very difficult to balance. You can't really balance it with the stock materials if you're using anything that's like a zoom lens or a longer lens or any kind of heavier lens. If you're using like a light prime, you're gonna be just fine. Like people are posting that they have zero issues with it, but then they go and post a picture and they have like the Canon like pancake lens on it. Like obviously any gimbal could do that. The main issue I was having is not having enough clearance on this back arm back here when having the batteries in it. Our other option would be is to run a V-mount through a cable, but then you have to rig the V-mount up and it's just gonna add more weight onto the whole setup. I didn't want to do that. So I'm trying to stick with these batteries, also because they're hot swappable. So let's start off with the first thing that I personally think that you will need. That is the Smallrig extended base plate thing here. This kind of just helps lock down the Komodo a lot better. The second piece I had to buy, oops. So the second piece I had to buy was the Smallrig base plate. If you have any of the Smallrig cages that have the Arca Swiss plate built into it, it'll be able to go into this guy. So another cool thing about this setup is you see this is it centered. I don't know if you guys can see that from this camera, but I can push this over more and it basically gets the Komodo closer over to this side. So when you're balancing this axis over here, you're not having to like limit it out. I ended up buying this one, and the reason I got this was this is where the issues start coming up with this gimbal. This is the stock plate that comes with it. As you can see, when you're trying to put the follow focus on here, within the second try of me doing it, it stripped this. That's ridiculous. I'm not completely like stupid when it comes to using tools. This is ridiculous that that thing stripped out within the second try. And so I just placed a Smallrig one. The Smallrig one, you could tighten it down pretty good. Again, don't tighten it too hard, but enough to where it feels snug. This isn't gonna strip out. I can already tell. This thing, I don't even know. This is, and I've heard other people stripping out theirs too. So usually DJI stuff's really good, but I don't know what that's really bad. Now, I also bought this like extended base plate, Manfrotto plate from Smallrig. The issue I had with this though, when you put it in there, it tightens down, right? But once you put the Komodo and some weight on it, it wouldn't tighten down. I literally had to put like 2 sheets of paper like stuffed into the lock, and that was enough to tighten it down. So it must be a quality control issue with Smallrig. This is the piece where they refunded me for it, but they're gonna send me another one that they're gonna test, but they're all stock, so they just give me a refund. So the other thing you're gonna need is a Smallrig counterweight system. This counterweight part comes with 2 100-gram weights. That wasn't heavy enough, so get that plus these 2 200-gram plates. And then when I mount this, again, I favor the right side on there just to counteract the heaviness of it going to the left. This is the stock follow focus setup that DJI gives you. This will go into the Smallrig plate just fine. I found a better way of doing this though. This whole piece was jerry-rigged. This piece was sent to me from another company and I looked online and I couldn't find the same exact piece. But you see, I actually had to unscrew it and pivot it over, so this locking mechanism's kind of showing a little bit, but it still locks. But now I can mount this to the side of my camera. Also, most of these are for 15mm rods. The rod that comes with the DJI, I think, is a 12mm, so you need to find some kind of adapter. Where I got this adapter was I actually got Smallrig's other follow focus setup, which doesn't work on any of my setups, because this is actually for cameras that sit up a little bit taller, but they had a sleeve because this is a 15mm hole. And so I just took that sleeve out of there and put it in this guy. So as you guys can see, I bought the Pro Combo Pack and I'm still having to piece together a bunch of different parts just to get it to work for my system, which is really annoying. I didn't pay $1,000 for a gimbal setup just to have to drop another few $100s and like having to hack things for it to work. But now you see we have our follow focus system on here. The other issue I was having with the stock one is you can't get it tight enough. And so when you go to calibrate your focus motor, the pieces that they give you, there's no points to put an Allen wrench or any kind of tool to tighten them down. You can only tighten them down by your hand. When you do that, you cannot get it tight enough for the rod not to slip. This whole rig, I can get it super dialed in and it doesn't budge at all. There's no movement in this at all. From there, I also got Smallrig's side handle that goes into the Nato mount on the side of the gimbal. The reason I like this one is we have a RE locating pin, whatever it's called. I can simply just take my monitor setup from my handheld and I can just toss that guy right up here. I don't like the regular hot shoot type of mountings because those always like to pivot and you're constantly having to lock them back down and tighten them down. The RE locating pin ones, they just really lock in. You don't have to mess with them too much. My next gripe, the USB-C cables that you have to plug in to use the focus motor. My assistant Jericho was holding this and I'm assuming he had some weight on it, but it simply just ripped out. This cable's brand new, like that should have ripped out that bad, or that easily I should say. So these cables do not feel high quality. Let me show you another USB-C cable. Here's a standard USB-C cable, right? Which one looks more robust to you? Again, DJI, why are you like kind of cheaping out on these parts? So some people might say, well, why don't you just do a different USB-C cable? I tried 4 different ones, none of them work. You have to use DJI's USB-C cable, so that's very annoying. Also, there's no right angle versions of them either, so that's another gripe that I have with it. Also guys, while I'm bouncing this axis right now, I was having an issue where no matter what position it was in, I would start getting shakes and everything. And whenever I held it over here, it just wouldn't hold. It wouldn't balance at all. So I found out that you really have to tighten down these knobs. I go as hard as I can go on it, and then you'll see once you do that, it will then hold. Again, this is with the Yoour 35mm. I've gotten to balance with the Sigma 18-35, but with no batteries on. And so again, if you want to run the Sigma 18-35, you're going to have to run a separate V-mount on there. I've seen people mount a smaller V-mount battery to the bottom, to the side. Again, I don't want to add more weight, and so I prefer using these batteries. So when it comes to Sigma 18-35, again, I can use it with this, but you can't go into briefcase mode like this with it. It just, there's no clearance for it, so. The reason I went with this one is one, all the accessories that are available for it and also how compact it is. And they just seem very user-friendly to use. I hate using gimbal because of how much work they take to set up. But once you do get them dialed in, that's why I was so extra with the way I was doing with everything, just because I want to be dialed in. So if I have to use a gimbal shot, I'm not gonna be like, I don't want to deal with the gimbal right now. Now that I've been through all this bullshit and I spent all this money on it, I am now happy with it. But again, coming straight out of stock with it for the Komodo, it just was no good. I don't know. Let's go see if we can rig this up to the motorcycle now. I know a lot of people are gonna hate on this, but I literally just had it on the bottom quarter mount down there, and it held just fine. Over the bumpy parts, I would hold on to it and just pull in my clutch. But I did a couple of setups, so I would pull over, I would undo this and lay it down on here. You see, there's some like scratches there, it's whatever. And then I was just tying it back up, and then I would just do different modes just to try to get like different looking shots on there. But it pretty much held up just fine. Like, that was pretty fun. Obviously, if I was doing like an actual gig, I would not rig this up like this. Like, this is a no-go. But I'm just out here having fun. If it crashed, it crashed. Supposedly it's supposed to be a crash cam, so it is what it is. And I just used the wireless Komodo app on the phone, and I have a little phone mount here because I do a lot of long trips on this. So yeah, that was just super handy, just to like see if I was in focus or not. Minimal focus isn't great on this lens, so we'll see how that turns out. But yeah, I didn't use RavenEye for a specific reason, and I will go over that here shortly. So the final thing that I need to go over about this gimbal, and it's another love-hate kind of thing. I love what it does. I hate that it doesn't work that great for me. The RavenEye and the Komodo is a process to set up. You have to get this SDI to HDMI little converter. You have all these cables running through it, monitoring through it. I actually like monitoring through the RavenEye more than the Red Komodo app. The focus peaking's pretty good on it, and I found it actually transmit the signal a little bit more smoother too. But if you go and look at my Vazen 28mm on the Komodo video, this lens is a prototype. Vazen sent it out to me to test out, and I had it on the DJI with the RavenEye, and I was just doing a simple push in with it, and the RavenEye went crazy. It did it twice on me, and it literally just threw the lens off. That's how much torque this gimbal has. It literally it threw the lens off. Luckily, it had my freewheel variable ND on it, and it landed on that, and it broke that filter, and it saved the lens. So I'm kind of terrified to try this again. I'm pretty sure the reason the gimbal did that was because of this, because it was when I was tracking in and the model would like turn or something like that, so the tracking would get thrown off. The whole gimbal would just go berserk. So with that said, most of the time, if I'm manning the gimbal and the camera myself, I don't need this. I can track the subject as it is. And this does come in handy though. If you see my other video, the behind the scenes of the motorcycle shoot I did, I was the only person there that could drive my Jeep because it's stick shift. And so I had to drive and use the Komodo app to try and direct Jericho, that's a tongue twister, to try and direct Jericho on what to do. And he was hanging out of it. He could barely hear me, so it's kind of a shit show. But if I had RavenEye on it, I could have probably just controlled it myself while driving. Would have been a little bit difficult. Probably would have been able to do it though. That's another reason I went with this more robust, rugged follow focus setup, because it was just any little thing that's not tightened down like super crazy good is going to throw off the gimbal. Let me just give you guys one last quick run around. So you see we have our follow focus, and it works great. This follow focus is very strong. If you try to calibrate it with a lens that doesn't have hard stops, it will literally throw it off the track if you're using the stock follow focus mount. So again, this helps again because you could dial it down really hard. So you can see there's the Smallrig base plate going into the Smallrig Manfrotto to Arca Swiss. And it tightens down nice. Our counterbalance weights down there. This is what I say, I just wish that they had a right angle USB-C cable that they gave us. We have full clearance there. With the Sigma 18-35, it is impossible to get clearance on this with these rear batteries on here. Some other people have done it, but they don't have the filters on it. They don't have the follow focus system on it. If you strip this thing down as much as you can balance it. The whole point is having these batteries with your filters on it, Sigma 18-35 plus follow focus. You have to stack up these weights down here to a point where if you could get 800 grams of counterweights on here, you could probably do it. But you're stressing out the gimbal even more then. So if you want to run the Sigma 18-35, you're gonna need to lose these batteries, run a V-mount battery. I've seen there's a mount that goes up here. Some people mount it down over here. I don't want to put more stress on the gimbal though. So if I did do it, I'd mount it somewhere off on here, maybe on the rear side arm thing that I have for it. We're done. Peace.